Good evening. This is Katie Phillips from Tosa Together. Welcome to Tosa Talks, Building a Diverse, Thriving Community, an ongoing Facebook Live series proudly sponsored by our generous friends at Bostic. Tosa Talks features 3 monthly presentations designed to provide meaningful discussions around racial and social justice issues to support the work of building an inclusive, anti-racist community. Tonight's talk features a panel discussion with the staff from the Milwaukee Metropolitan Fair Housing Council. We welcome and encourage you to take part in the live Q&A session tonight. Please be part of the conversation by adding your questions and comments for our speakers into the Facebook comments section during the presentation. Now it is my pleasure to introduce tonight's host, Robin Luther.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Katie. We're so glad that everyone's here and that we're here tonight for a discussion with 3 amazing staff members of the Milwaukee Metropolitan Fair Housing Council. Please say hello to Corey Schneider-Perugini, Wendy Hamilton, and Dame Rimmer. Hello, everybody. How are you guys tonight?
Good, Robin. How are you?
Very good, Robin.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Good. We've talked before, and I know that the thrust of your conversation is going to be around the Opportunity Milwaukee project that you guys are working on. But we also talked about the need to give some background information. So what I'd like to start with is just to have each of you give us a minute about what brought you to your position, what you do at the Housing Council, and just a little bit about yourselves so everyone gets to know you. Anyone can start.
I'll go ahead. So I'm Corey. I have been with the Metro Milwaukee Fair Housing Council for 23 years as of yesterday. I started sort of right out of school and started out doing insurance investigations. So looking at homeowners, insurers, and making sure that they were treating people equally based on their race and the racial composition of their neighborhood. And from there was able to continue to kind of learn and grow. So now the kind of work I do, I head up the Inclusive Communities program at the council. And what that is looking at institutional barriers to equal housing opportunities and trying to dismantle them, or looking at best practices that really help promote integration or integrated communities. So things like zoning, where it might not seem like zoning is something that has a racial impact, it absolutely does. And so we look at zoning around the region and, you know, what the patterns it's created and the harm that it's done and the good that it could do. Look at things like the Housing Choice Voucher, which is a federal program that we'll be talking more about later, the low-income housing tax credit, and really any policy that a community has that's related to housing in any way can either be a barrier or the opposite. I think I'll stop there.
Well, happy anniversary to you. That's a nice long tenure at this job.
It's a little bit.
It's great. It's great. Wendy, would you like to go next?
Sure. My name is Wendy Hamilton, and I have been with the Metropolitan Milwaukee Fair Housing Council since July of 2020. So just under a year. My 1-year anniversary will be soon coming up. And I believe I'm one of the babies of the bunch on our staff. So I'm looking forward to the tenure that Corey and the rest of our colleagues have. I serve in the capacity as a program manager for Opportunity MKE, or Opportunity Milwaukee program. Prior to me coming on board with the Fair Housing Council, I was the executive director of Future Urban Leaders, which is a youth serving after school program at the time. And I was very instrumental with transforming this after school program into a nonprofit organization. And prior to that, I worked for Sherman Park Community Association as a community development practitioner. I had 11 years doing that work, which was absolutely amazing. And this is where I really just kind of got my teeth engaged in, where I activated holistic approaches around empowerment of the community, inclusion, and social justice through the collective actions of the community at large. And that's really what kind of brought me into the Fair Housing Council. I wanted to dig a little deeper into, service and advocacy work with families and members of the community. I also have extensive experience, over 25 years experience in nonprofits, as well as home purchasing, counseling, mortgage lending, and getting folks ready, for that next step in their lives.
Right.
So thank you for having us.
Oh, thank you for being here. We're glad you became part of this staff. And
Thank
Dame,
you.
now we have you. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Dame Rimmer. I am the program coordinator here. I, like Wendy, was hired in July. So we are two of the newest members of the organization. So our 1-year anniversary will be in about 2 months. Prior to working here, I spent the last 6 years working with underrepresented communities, and then also reducing homelessness within the Milwaukee community. So when I had the opportunity to work with the Fair Housing Council, it only seemed right because of the skill set that I had prior, coupled with what we do right now.
Mhm.
So it was perfect for me to integrate right in there. And prior to that, I worked in the capacity of how would I like to say? I like to say drug treatment and prevention. So I did that prior. And so it was a natural progression right into homelessness and then getting people housed. So in the capacity now, my job is to reach out to landlords and communities, any type of resources that we have that we can inform individuals about the program that we currently have and then get them on board. So it's not limited to that, but generally that's what I spend a lot of my time doing, reaching out to landlords, communities, banks, all of those type of things.
Right, and paving the way. That's very interesting. Lots of on the ground community work.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad that you're all here. And when we talked earlier about what you would cover today, we kind of decided that each of you would take a section. And so we thought we'd start with Corey, because before we can talk about the Opportunity MKE program, I think it would be important to have some background on the Fair Housing Council itself, and also some background on the housing equity issues that led to the need for the program. What problems are you addressing? So take it away, Corey. Tell us a little bit about that background.
Sure. I'll start with the organization. So the Fair Housing Council has been around since 1977, so 44 years. And it came about when citizens, actually starting in Sherman Park, realized that housing providers were not following the Fair Housing Act, which had been passed in 1968. Realized that there needed to be some sort of accountability. And so they formed the Fair Housing Council to start to hold housing providers accountable and make sure that they were not discriminating. We're the only fair housing organization in the state of Wisconsin. We operate in the metro area, like the 4-county area. And then in Dane County, and then in the Fox Valley area, including Appleton, Oshkosh, Green Bay, Fond du Lac. We do some other things rurally statewide, but our resources don't allow for a ton of stuff outside those service areas. And the purpose of the Fair Housing Council is to promote fair housing throughout the state and combat illegal housing discrimination by creating and maintaining racially and economically integrated housing patterns. So that's really where the program we're going to talk to you about tonight comes in. Most people who know the Fair Housing Council know us as an organization that will do housing discrimination investigations. If somebody feels they were discriminated against, trying to rent an apartment because of their race, we could investigate that, and using a variety of techniques, but we can usually determine fairly effectively if discrimination is going on based on two different people going in that are similar on every characteristic, except for that characteristic that they think discrimination occurred on, and seeing how that treatment was, and documenting all of that data.
Interesting. Can you tell me, how is the Fair Housing Council funded? Are you part of the government? Are you an independent organization?
Yeah, we are a private, nonprofit entity. We're not government oriented, although a good part of our funding comes from the government. The Fair Housing Act, because HUD is the Housing and Urban Development, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, doesn't have all the resources to do all the investigating to enforce the Federal Fair Housing Act. So they basically contract with local entities to do that kind of investigation and to do outreach. So we do get some federal funding for that. And then local communities who also have obligations to, the technical term is affirmatively further fair housing, will fund us also to ensure that each community's fair housing needs are being met. For example, the city of Wauwatosa has that obligation. And so we do have a contract with the city of Wauwatosa, as well as city of Milwaukee, Milwaukee County, Waukesha County, and several other smaller jurisdictions around the state. So yeah, we have our enforcement department. We have an outreach and education component where we go out and try to talk to consumers, make sure that they understand what their rights and responsibilities are and who they can call if they run into a problem, and talking to housing providers and let them know, what their rights and responsibilities are under the Fair Housing Act, so that they know how to stay on the right side of the law, and ensure people are getting that equal access to housing. We have a fair lending component, where the goal is to ensure that banks are lending to all communities, regardless of race and income.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Inclusive Communities Program, and that is the program that Opportunity MKE is operating under.
Excellent. That's a good segue into Opportunity MKE. Are there specific housing issues that Opportunity MKE is addressing?
Yes, the short answer to that is yes, 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 and yes. So, unless you've been living under a rock, no offense to anybody who has been.
I realize that Wendy's going to cover more about the program itself, but
yeah,
like a little background on some of these issues that are
sure,
longstanding. Mm-hmm.
Sure. So Metropolitan Milwaukee is extremely segregated. We're hyper segregated. There are a multitude of reasons for this, and I think we've all, Dame, Wendy, and I can all attest to being very seeing that firsthand on a lot of different levels over the last year. And one thing that we also have realized is that housing choice vouchers, rent assistance, those vouchers are also very, very segregated. And just a little bit of backstory, rent assistance or housing choice vouchers are a rent subsidy that people who are of low income can apply for. And if they come up on the waiting list, they get this voucher that will subsidize the difference between the rent and 30% of their income. So, they might get a subsidy that pays all their rent. They might get a subsidy that only pays $100 of their rent, but that is called rent assistance or a housing choice voucher. But the intent of that program was to be sort of the counter to public housing. Public housing was always located in a community, and it was usually a poor community. And so the intent of the voucher was allow people to access housing in the private market because it benefits the private market, and it allows people to have that choice of where they would like to live. And the problem is that is not the reality of how vouchers are being used for a variety of reasons. And I know Dame will talk a little bit more about what those challenges are. So our goal, and the need that we're trying to meet is to break down barriers that families have accessing housing in what are considered high opportunity communities. There's been research, really significant research over several decades that show that where a child grows up is a major predictor for their future life outcomes, be it health, educational levels, income levels, all of that. And so, like I said, there was a lot of research, but some researchers at Harvard took it a step further and they looked at every single census tract in the country and which census tracts had the greatest potential for helping kids from low-income households realize those benefits of those communities. And so using that data, we are engaging in this process and trying to identify what those high opportunity areas are.
Mm-hmm.
So we realize there are multiple issues that need to be met, the segregation, and just families being able to access places where they can really thrive and where their kids feel safe and like they're succeeding. I think that, I mean, that touches on it, but I'm certain.
That's an excellent background. That's an excellent
Okay.
background. Yeah. I think then, Wendy, why don't we move into the question that you are going to handle, which is basically, let's hear more about the Opportunity MKE program, what it's based on, what the, how it came to be, and how it works, how it works and who it works for.
Absolutely. Thank you, Robin. A lot of what I'm going to say is probably going to also complement what Corey has already beautifully outlined. Opportunity Milwaukee is the mobility program of the Metropolitan Fair Housing Council. Mobility programs are not new. They've been happening all over the country and they're happening right now. Some of the other areas where mobility is happening is in Chicago, St. Louis, Seattle, even in Baltimore. And it's really, time for Milwaukee to have its own mobility program for one of the main reasons that Corey said. It's not unknown that Milwaukee is one of the most segregated cities in the United States. So the way I like to look at mobility is truly mobility, helping families to move to areas of opportunity and resource so that their children and their families can thrive as they grow. So basically for the Opportunity Milwaukee program, we partner with 3 of the local housing authorities, the City of Milwaukee Housing Authority, or also known as HACM, Milwaukee County Housing Authority, as well as Waukesha County Housing Authority. And through that partnership, we actually work with the families that they have within their rent assistance program to recruit them to be a part of Opportunity Milwaukee. These families do not need to be sold on moving to better neighborhoods with better opportunities. They want the good school districts for their children. They want to feel safe in their neighborhoods. They want greater economic opportunities for themselves so that they can become more, self-sufficient and not necessarily be without the type of income that is required to maintain a household or a family. So with the Opportunity Milwaukee program, when a family is interested in participating, I actually have conversations with them and we go through what's called an enrollment appointment. Now with Opportunity Milwaukee, just like in other states where mobility is happening, they have also been researching to find out what the outcomes are of these families once they actually move to Opportunity. And what they're finding is that the children in these households tend to graduate high school and go on to college at much greater rates than if they were just centrally located in the center city. Research has also shown that the income of these children when they're raised in these neighborhoods tends to earn about $103,000 more per year over the course of their lifetime if they are raised up in these neighborhoods. So just as that research has been done in Seattle and in St. Louis, Milwaukee now is also researching our families as we move them to opportunity areas to find out what their life outcomes are going to be. So we also partner with a research entity called MDRC, and they are the ones that will be conducting the research and the study portion of this program to just see how families fare over the next, 2 to 5 years. And so if the families are interested in participating in Opportunity Milwaukee, and they are wanting to move to better communities, then we enroll them in the program. Now, just because they are interested, all of them are not being selected to participate in the Opportunity Milwaukee program. Because this is a study, some of those individuals will be a part of the study arm of Opportunity Milwaukee. And that all occurs when we're doing the enrollment appointment. We meet face-to-face over Zoom because we're still virtual. And we meet for about an hour, and I ask them a series of questions just about their families and the schools that their children go to. And the computer will randomly assign them to 1 or 2 different groups. Either they're going to be assigned to the Opportunity Milwaukee program group, which is where they receive our services. And I'll talk a little bit more about the services that we provide to those families, or the computer will randomly assign them to the regular voucher group, which means they keep their voucher and they continue to look on their own without any help or assistance from our program.
So they can still move to the same neighborhoods. It just isn't with your assistance and guidance and the support.
Exactly.
And one other quick question before you go on. It sounds like this is a family program. So this is not really designed for an individual renter or a couple who is renting. This is designed for people with children?
With children under the age of 18, because the research has shown that the younger the children are when they move to these higher opportunity areas, the better the outcome will be and the impacts that it will have on the younger children in the households. But the age limit would be families with children 18 years of age or younger.
Okay.
And so if they are selected for the Opportunity Milwaukee program, then that's when they have an opportunity to work with myself and my 2 colleagues here in this conversation. There are 5 components to our program.
Mm-hmm.
And the first component of our program is opportunity area education. That's when I personally will meet one-on-one with the participant and educate them on what the opportunity areas are. I show them the maps and they decide where they'd like to live. And a lot of them are very surprised to see how many of the Milwaukee County municipalities are within the high opportunity neighborhoods. And as Corey had mentioned earlier, most voucher holders are hyper segregated to the inner city. And with a voucher, they are free to move to any of the other municipalities within the city of Milwaukee. So I educate them on that during our first appointment. And the goal for that is simply to increase families' familiarity with the areas and to increase their interest. And so the second component of our program is rental coaching. This is where we kind of get down and dirty and really, look at their finances and look at their budget and make sure that they are readying themselves to look for housing in some of these private market neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
I actually order credit reports for our participants. I teach and educate them on how to read their credit report. And I also offer suggestions as to how they might be able to elevate their credit scores. Oftentimes, when you have your credit report, if there's any inaccurate or erroneous information, that could affect the credit scores. And a lot of participants don't realize that. And a simple dispute of cleaning up some of those items can really bring their credit score to a level that is acceptable for those landlords.
Right.
And also as part of the rental coaching, which I have found very enjoyable is working with participants to help them to develop what we call a rental resume. And a rental resume is designed just like a job resume, but it really showcases your rental history. And it also allows the families to be able to say what it is that they're looking for and what type of landlord they are interested in having. And once they're finished with it, they're able to take that rental resume, fill out the application, and turn this document in. And from experience of one of our participants utilizing that rental resume, the landlord was blown away. They had never seen anything like it before. So it was really impressive. And so we actually have other little, tactics and strategies that we utilize to help them to, really put themselves in the best marketability possible. The third component of our program is our housing search component. And the goal of that is just really to support families as they're searching for properties. And that's where Dame comes in. And I'm sure he's going to talk a little bit more about his role with the housing search component. And then the fourth component is financial assistance. Any of the participants who are leasing up in the high opportunity areas has access to up to $1,200 to assist them with security deposit, application fees, and some of those costs that are incurred when you're actually looking for a rental property. And this kind of helps the families to be able to pocket some money to help them to move, and get the moving truck and buy the boxes and all of the things that are necessary to have a successful move. And then lastly, once we, actually are successful at moving a family into high opportunity areas, we don't just say, see you later, bye, nice meeting you. We also follow up with them with our post-move services. And our post-move services is primarily there to, one, help the families just get acclimated to the neighborhood or to identify any additional resources that they may need, and to find out how they are getting along with their landlord, or if there's anything that we can do to kind of help their transition to be a lot more smooth. And we also, will continue to educate them through, various community events or workshops that are occurring, just so that they can stay, apprised of the rental market and potential home ownership later in life. Okay. So those are kind of our 5 components of our program. And we have a family that has successfully leased up in a high opportunity area. I'm very proud to say that. And she absolutely loves it. Her neighbors love her. And she said she will never move anywhere else at this point. So
there's your first testimonial story.
Yes.
A couple questions. When you're referencing opportunity neighborhoods, what are the metrics? What makes an opportunity neighborhood?
Corey, go ahead.
I'll take this one.
Okay.
By and large, so we've done this 2 ways. We measured about 10 years ago. We did an opportunity map of the region, and it looked at school performance. It looked at violent crime. It looked at poverty. It looked at health indices, and I feel like there was one other one, and we had that. However, in this new process, as we got this project going, we were introduced to this new data from Harvard. The group is called Opportunity Insights. They have an amazing map called Opportunity Atlas. If you go check it out on their website, and you can zoom in on any community, and it'll give you a ton of data. If you're a little bit of a map nerd like me, you'll love it. Opportunity Atlas. Anyway, so they looked at these census tracts and used tax return data to find out specifically which census tracts had these great outcomes for kids. And so, and then they assigned every census tract a score. And so we picked the top 40% of those opportunity. We could have done the top 50%. We could have done the top 30%, just based on
on your capacity and what, okay.
Yeah. We picked the top 40%.
Okay. Okay.
So that's sort of like the easy answer, but like you could.
That's a good overview. Wendy, you were talking about there's a $1,200 assistance to get people
Yes.
down payments and moving expenses. Can you tell us more about like what a voucher looks like? I know that Corey was saying that it's between, it bridges the gap between 30% of someone's income and the rental income. Is there a cap on that voucher?
There is, based on the bedroom size and based on the different housing authorities. Everybody's rule is a little bit different. And I don't have the numbers right here in front of me, but for instance, a 2-bedroom voucher with Milwaukee County is $1,050. So a family would need to find a 2-bedroom property for $1,050.
Okay.
With
That's not
all
what you're adding
utilities
on.
included.
That's not what you're adding on to their 30%. That's the total rental and utilities, you said?
That is correct.
Okay.
That they are able to afford.
So they know when they're looking at properties that come in at that level or below.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Excellent overview.
Thank you.
So is there anything else that you wanted to add, Wendy, before we go on to Dame?
No, I think that will conclude the program overview.
Okay. Okay.
So thank you.
So Dame, we've got this new program running and we have people who are coming in and they're being routed either into the study or into a more traditional self-guided way of finding housing. And so you get to see everybody, I assume, or are you just working with people that are going into the Opportunity MKE program, into the track that's in the study?
So I'm working exclusively with the people who are selected that we work with, not the study group, not the individuals who don't receive our services. I work with the individuals who receive our services.
Okay. Okay. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about what your process is with those people? And then I know what we had discussed about before is that you're also going to talk about what barriers are you still knocking up against? Where are the sticky parts?
Yeah.
Yeah, take it away.
Okay, so as my colleague Wendy stated, she would speak with them for her portion, and then I would get them for the housing search portion. So just to give a little rundown of what that looks like when they come to me is this. So they would go with Wendy, do the enrollment, they get selected to be a part of our group. She would do the credit counseling and she would do that portion. So then I would take over from there. Once I are introduced to the participant, there's a couple of things that we do. We go over what Wendy went over just to make sure that it's a smooth transition in case if they don't understand anything, it was something left over, or maybe they need to adapt something over from what happened before, such as like the rental resume or something like that. Be my job to follow up just to make sure that they feel comfortable with it, because I'm going to ultimately be the person who works with them to submit that rental resume to a potential landlord.
Okay.
So during an initial meeting, what would happen is that I would talk to this individual and then I would gather a lot of data from them, such as what is their income, what's their housing size, what are their housing preferences, bedroom size, and then also data from the voucher. How many bedrooms are you allocated for? How much money can you afford? That portion. So that's the portion that I work with. So from there, let's say Susie. I meet Susie. Susie has a 3-bedroom voucher, and she can afford $1,300. And she wants to stay in, let's say her top 3 neighborhoods are Wauwatosa, Bayview, and Oak Creek. Okay, so my focus are on those top 3 neighborhoods to find something that fits within her qualifications so that we could potentially get her into those units in those areas. Now, in the event that we can't find her anything in those areas, our job is to find comparable units in other areas that she might be comfortable with, that she would potentially feel comfortable with moving to. Okay. So that's generally what happens.
When you said Susie can afford theoretically $1,300, is that the amount of her voucher? Is that what she's qualified for? in the program?
Qualify for $1,300.
Okay, got it.
But that's $1,300 for a 3-bedroom with utilities included.
Okay.
We know we have a baseline here. The $1,300 is the baseline. We know we can't go above it, but we know we have to work within that window to find something that's acceptable and that she'd actually qualify for.
Okay. Okay.
So from there, just to move aside from working with the participants, what I do is, so I'm scouring the internet, looking for resources, and also using all of the apps that have all of the rental units on it that most people use, such as HotPads or apartments.com or Trulia or Zillow or Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. So my job is to go and scour through all of these listings and to weed out the ones that are not opportunities. So I don't necessarily offer units that are non-opportunity because we need to focus on opportunity. So, so I wouldn't search necessarily, let's say the west side of Milwaukee non-opportunity. I would probably search Wauwatosa or maybe Greenfield or Greendale or something like that.
Okay. So you're looking in the 40% of the census tracts that you've selected. Okay.
Absolutely. We want to give our participants the best possibility, the best chance to obtain housing and opportunity, because ultimately, if they don't find housing in opportunity zones, then that kind of stops the process in which we can work with them, because we want to make sure we focus to keep them in this study group so that we can actually follow through with them because they are in opportunity areas.
Right, right. Okay.
So what I would do is maybe I would scour the internet, and let's say I came up and I looked and I saw that there were 150 units for rent in opportunity areas. So with that, I would make 150 calls to see, of those opportunity areas, one, what are the qualifications? Two, do they accept vouchers? And three, what are the specifics about the units? What are the amenities? What are the drawing points of those units? And then compile a spreadsheet of data that one will go back to the participants so they can have a look through and save them some time, because we don't want them to spend the majority of their times skimming through units that are not in opportunities. Some are, some aren't. That kind of impedes the process for them to move.
Right.
So I've already done the work for them. So when they go and they look, they have the option to either call on their own or to utilize me or Wendy or Corey as a resource to then act as an advocate for them with this landlord. Let's say we have a landlord who doesn't know how the program works, or they don't feel comfortable, or they need more information. Then they would talk to 1-3 of us, and then we would reach out to that landlord and potentially educate that landlord on what they do not know, with the hopes that we would be able to use that information to get this potential client into that unit.
So landlords can be a barrier, just their ignorance of the program or their unfamiliarity with vouchers. We had a question come in about duplex owners who don't like to take rent assistance because they're afraid of the red tape involved. Is there a lot of red tape? Is that a legitimate concern, or is that something that you can help people get over that fear and assure them of the process?
So I'm going to speak a little bit about that when I talk about the challenges.
Okay.
And so my hope is that when I go through the challenges, then I'll answer that question.
Okay, I'm going to just let you finish then.
Okay. So so once they get this spreadsheet, or once they get this information, the goal is hopefully, with what we found, we've helped them find a unit that's acceptable for them and their family. We don't want them to ultimately move to a place that's not comfortable for them. Right. We want them to move where they want to move and where they deserve to move. That's part of the program. We want to say, hey, you are worth it. You can move where you want to. You can choose, as long as you qualify for it. So we want to bridge that gap to help them move into that area.
Excellent.
So also, we've identified some challenges that come with the program, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so we have a few that I'd like to talk about. So one of the biggest ones that we and our colleagues are working on is the payment standard. And what that means is like Wendy said, if a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom is $1,095, that might work in certain pockets of town. But let's say that we move out to Brookfield where you have $300,000, $400,000, and $500,000. Landlords aren't going to accept $1,000 with utilities for that potential unit. So what we're saying is, hey, we recognize that this is an issue, and we would like the payment standard to potentially be raised so that we can meet the market where it's at currently. We can't take what's not there and then make it happen with what is there already. So the payment standard we've identified is very low. And we want to do our best and provide data and evidence to say, hey, look, we've come up with this, we've compiled the data, and we'd like you to look at it and say, hey, it's not enough. And we really care about getting our participants into these areas. And if we do, then we care about the payment standard being raised.
Can I just add a little bit to that?
Absolutely.
So the payment standards are a function of each housing authority. And as Dame and Wendy already said, each of the 3 housing authorities have slightly different payment standards. All come from Department of Housing and Urban Development. And so the set payment standards are fair market rents for an entire region. So the poorest neighborhood has the same payment standard as the most wealthy neighborhood. And so if the payment standard is somewhat low, it just is a function of that low payment standard established by the housing authority that most of the families will be in the lowest rent areas. So it really is that payment standard issue is really something that we have to struggle and get the housing authorities to make some changes.
Well, and the intent of the payment standard is to give people options where they can rent. So, well, maybe not, but there's no variation then for the payment standard, the vouchers, the voucher within any one of those systems for any place that they cover. So whether it's the east side of Milwaukee, the west side of Milwaukee, northwest Milwaukee, or Wauwatosa or Brookfield, it's fairly standard across those areas, regardless of what the actual income is needed to rent someplace in those areas.
It's currently standard under the Obama administration. They passed something called small area fair market rents, which allow housing authorities to adopt those payment standards by zip code instead of as a whole metro area. So then you do get those fluctuations in the rent based on neighborhood. And that is what we're asking the housing authorities to adopt.
So that exists, it just does not exist in the Milwaukee area or anywhere in Wisconsin yet?
Not in Wisconsin that I'm aware of.
Okay.
It would open up so many more units if we were able to adopt those small area fair market rents, because as the payment standards stand currently, this is perpetuating the hyper segregation of these vouchers in some of the poorest communities in the city of Milwaukee.
Right, and that must be just a continuous struggle for you, Dame, then to even locate properties and then to identify landlords who have enough understanding of the program that they want to, if you're finding those lower rents, people who want to participate. Okay,
Correct.
Continue with the problems, because it sounds like they might be mounting up.
Okay. And so another one of the other challenges that we identified are the qualifications. And that just means that our participants sometimes don't meet the qualification asked by landlords. Let's say, such as you might not be able to have any evictions ever. And, you know, we've all been young, we've all run into challenges, but we all think that we should be able to be redeemed. And what happened to you at 19 shouldn't affect you at 39, you know, so that's been an issue. Also, the landlords might ask for 2.5 times the rent, 3 times, and we've even seen some rents asking for 4 times the amount of rent and income to qualify for that unit. So if the unit is $1,200, then they need to bring in 3 times, potentially 4 times the amount of income to qualify to move into that unit. This poses an issue. The issue is that if they make that much money, then they also wouldn't qualify to be on the housing choice voucher program to begin with.
Right.
So that's also another issue that we've seen, that is sometimes keeping our participants out of a lot of units.
Okay, so landlords are able to put down income qualifications, which really don't need to apply to your participants because you're closing that gap for them. Okay. One of our questions was, there's been such a dramatic increase in market values recently. Have you seen those same increases happening in rental units? Is that happening simultaneously with the market surge that we've seen?
So no, we're seeing units available. We see units available. There there might be shortages in pockets in neighborhoods, but overall there's not that big of a shortage that we're seeing now. But that doesn't mean that it can't change later, or it won't change, relatively shortly. But right now there is a robust market out there for renters. But like I said, the challenges are that the qualifications for those units is what's hindering us from being able to place some of our participants in those units.
Okay.
And another challenge is landlords who don't accept the voucher. Whether that be, it's multitudes of reasons why they say they don't why they don't choose to utilize the voucher. We've heard some things such as they don't like the rules and the regulations of the housing authority. We've also heard that they have a perception of housing choice voucher participants that maybe is not true to everyone. Everyone comes across something at some time. So that doesn't mean the greater good of everyone will be like that one person that you came across.
Right.
So that's another issue that we're facing.
So you can address that individually with landlords, and then do you make attempts to address that in outreach to landlords as a group, or outreach to landlord organizations?
Yeah, so we've done both. So I might speak with a landlord one-on-one to kind of help him understand and educate him on the program and why it's beneficial. Also, we have had so we've talked to groups of landlords, and then also have presentations to help educate a larger group of people about the housing choice voucher, so that they understand it's not maybe what you think that it is, and it's also maybe not what you've been told. You have some people who have experiences with the program, and they might tell another person, then that person might take on what that person told them, and maybe not have experienced it themselves at all.
So Dave, when you're talking to a landlord, when they're going well, I've heard bad things about this, what are the top 1, 2, or 3 things that you tell them? What are the benefits to a landlord of accepting vouchers?
So one of our points, and Wendy says it so greatly, is that you are helping someone get into an area that otherwise they might not qualify for. And why is that important? Because that potentially helps that family, and also the children in that household, have better outcomes for life. That's one of the major things. The second thing is it's guaranteed income. And with COVID going on right now, who wouldn't want guaranteed income coming in every month?
Right. So the rent is guaranteed.
The rent is guaranteed. So, again, here's another misconception. Maybe they believe that once they get the participant in, if they don't pay, then they don't get anything. That's not the case. You have a client portion, and then you also have a housing authority portion, and that together makes up the 100% of that rental income that will then go to that landlord.
And if somebody's income, like somebody in the program suddenly lost their income, then their voucher eligibility would raise to meet that difference?
Yes. So then the housing authority would pick up the portion, and then that landlord would still be able to get
They'll be able to get their rent.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. there's another question. I want to get to a few questions because this hour is going way too fast.
Okay.
Somebody's asking back to the small area market rates. Somebody's wondering if, like in Wauwatosa, for instance, could there be an effort of citizens in Wauwatosa to go directly to the Tosa Housing Authority to adopt a small area market rate so the vouchers are worth more here? Or is that done at a different level?
That would be at a different level, unfortunately, because
Okay.
I really appreciate that idea. The Wauwatosa Housing Authority does not have any vouchers, does not issue vouchers. But if they did, they would have that jurisdiction to dictate their own payment standards. I think in Wauwatosa, I don't know that when I remember looking at the 2 zip codes in Wauwatosa, what is it, 13 and 26?
Yeah, there's a couple
Yes.
other ones too.
Okay, yeah, the increase wasn't huge when I looked at the small area fair market rents, but it would have increased over what the housing authorities are currently doing. Sorry, a Harley just went by.
Adds interest. Yeah.
There's no way I can mute myself over that.
So here's another question that just came in, talking back about like landlords saying, no, we need 4 times the amount of income, to rent here. When landlords are setting their own rules for who can and can't rent, is there any legislation that prevents people from doing this? I mean, I know that you were talking about 30% of your income is a standard amount of what you should be able to pay for your housing needs. Is there anything that stops landlords from going way above that, requiring people to have higher incomes than what they need?
I'm going to take a stab at this. So in Milwaukee County, housing choice vouchers or rent assistance is protected, meaning landlords cannot say, I won't rent to somebody who has rent assistance. And because of that law, in effect, anybody who has rent assistance will not have an income that is 4 times the rent. That just
right.
By
the definition alone, right?
So there is a disparate impact then on that protected class, and so an attorney with enough time on their hands could make that argument to the county that requirement, charging 3 or 4, or really even just 2 times the rent, is not legal. One thing they could do, and this is what I think Dame and Wendy and I have all said, is that they could say you need to make 3 times your portion of the rent. That would be fair, because that is exactly how the voucher works. They make times their portion of the rent, and that's completely fair.
Okay.
But
you just said that people are obligated to take vouchers. Does that pertain to all landlords? Are there exceptions of people who can? Is there anyone, like someone who just has one property with one rental unit in their duplex? Are they obligated to take vouchers?
In Milwaukee County, yes.
In Milwaukee County. So if somebody doesn't, I guess the decision then becomes, do you take them to court over that, or you just move on and try to find somebody who does? Or for your program, how can we explain to this person the benefits of it? I mean, it's not really, you're not explaining why they want to choose to. You're just trying to explain why they want to try not to give you a problem about it. Because really they have to, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I think it really depends. Like, how bad does our participant want that unit, and do they have time? Like, a court process could take a long time, and if you take a landlord to court, are you even going to get? Is that going to happen in the window of time they need to find a unit?
Right. And what does that do to the renter-rentee relationship as a way to start?
Yeah. So there's still ways to go about it. It just is, it's not as clean as, it could be. I think the county corporation council that enforces the local ordinance they are more likely to go after landlords if there is an actual person who is looking to get that unit.
Mhm.
And usually it's more of a negotiation, that it's not a, there's not been a legal action yet. It's just a, okay, you know, you have to do this right. And then they talk through it.
Okay. One, as we're zooming in on time, one more question that came up is somebody said they looked up the Milwaukee County Voucher Program link, and it says on that site that they aren't taking applications right now. How is this related to your program? And does that cause problems with your program? And do you know anything about that freeze on those applications?
So I guess I can take a stab at that one.
Uh-huh.
Milwaukee County, as well as the city of Milwaukee, they both have waiting lists for their vouchers. But each of them already have a plethora of families that are currently on rent assistance. So it doesn't affect us adversely too much if those wait lists are not open. Because every year, you know, when the lease expiration comes up, those families can choose to move and to also participate in our program where we can help them to move to a higher opportunity area. So
Okay.
that's kind of cyclical. One of the benefits of taking new participants off of the waiting list is that there's no lease expiration in play already, because they're typically already renting somewhere and paying full rent. So we have about 120 days from that voucher to help them to actually move to some of these high opportunity neighborhoods.
Got it.
And this is a perfect opportunity for me to make an announcement, and I will put it in the chat. I don't know if I'm allowed to,
Of course.
but Waukesha County Housing Authority, their wait list will be opening on June 14th. So anyone that you may know who might be interested in applying for rent assistance, you can contact the Waukesha County Housing Authority, and they will be opening up their voucher applications for a very short window of time. You have to move expediently.
Okay.
So it's like from 9 a.m. on June 14th, and then the application process closes on June 17th,
Oh my
at
goodness.
9 a.m. So it's a
Okay.
very small window of opportunity. And that happens on occasion. It's like winning the lottery. Like if Milwaukee County or the city of Milwaukee opens up their waiting list, it's like winning a lottery for some of these families.
Okay. So the people who are coming into your program, you're drawing them off of waiting lists already. You're dealing with people who are already in the voucher system and looking to move.
Yes.
So you're not out looking for new program participants. They're lined up waiting for you to help them find opportunities.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well,
And
we are
so we
down
don't
to,
have to sell them, you know,
Yeah.
on moving to these better neighborhoods. They are eager and ready to.
right, right. So we have to get the better neighborhoods on board with how to be part of this, and we have to get policy on board with how to make this easier and give more flexibility to your program.
You got it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm just surprised how fast the hour went, as usual. You guys are awesome. I'd love for you each to just have a chance to give one final thought if you'd like. Maybe Dame, you want to start? Is there anything you want to wrap with before we head out?
Yeah, so if you guys know anybody who is looking to rent and would like maybe more information about the housing program and our program in specific, I'll put my email in the chat here. You can contact me directly, and I'd love to talk to you.
So you're looking for landlords.
Absolutely.
Okay. And landlords from duplexes to triplexes to multi-unit complexes, but mostly for 2 to 3 bedroom units is what your program is looking at? Okay.
Or more, 4, 5. That's
Okay.
possible as well.
Okay. Excellent.
Thank you.
Wendy, anything you wanted to add before we go?
The only thing that I think I'd like to add is just, I want to thank everyone for this conversation. I've really enjoyed having this dialogue, and the more that we can do this, the more awareness that we can bring to the broader public about the work that we're doing. But we all have to be diligent about breaking down the barriers of segregation in this city. Enough is enough. There needs to be equality and equity on all fronts. And so that's what I would say in conclusion.
Excellent. And Corey, let's end with you. What are your final thoughts here?
I don't know. I don't want to follow Wendy. I know.
I don't blame you. I wouldn't want to follow either of them. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, that's excellent. And thank you so much. I know that everyone watching will put all those links into the Facebook comment section so they live with this video. I'm hoping that everybody watching will join me in thanking our guests, Dame Rimmer, Wendy Hamilton, and Corey Schneider-Perugini from the Milwaukee Metropolitan Fair Housing Council. Thank you, you guys, for taking time to talk with us tonight, sharing your excellent information and all of your insight into the program and your suggestions. I know people got a lot out of this. Thank you also to our Facebook audience. We love that you're there watching. Thanks for your time and your interest and your questions. And as always, a special thank you to our generous friends at Bostic. Their support makes the entire Tosa Talk series possible. Yay, Bostic. Plan on joining us next Thursday. Tosa Talks will be back next Thursday with Brad Schleikowski, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, from Courage Milwaukee, for a conversation about social equity issues facing our LGBTQ community members. And then a reminder to everybody that you can find recordings of tonight's presentation on our Facebook page or along with all of our Tosa Talks presentations on the Tosa Together YouTube channel. Reach out to us anytime through Facebook, through our website, or by emailing us directly at tosatogether@gmail.com. That's easy to remember. This is Robin Luther with Tosa Together, and it really has been my very great pleasure to be here with you guys tonight. Thank you so much. And as well as with our Facebook audience. Thanks everybody for being part of Tosa Talks and our mutual effort to build a diverse, thriving community. Good night. Good night, Wendy. Good night, Dame.
Good night. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.